I'm pretty sure that if you're a breeder or if you're just buying an animal, it's the same situation. You have a hatchling, and in your mind, you imagine this hatchling getting so big so fast. Well, in this video, I'm going to cover something that a lot of people just don't really even talk about. The differences in feeding an animal that's maybe 50 grams or 60 grams versus an 80-gram animal that's at hatchling weight. It's a big difference, guys, and I want to make sure that we know and understand the differences in each one of the snakes, even though in the case of the 50 and 60 gram, it's a relatively small amount of weight, but it's so drastic as for the animal, and how you feed it can determine its long-term health and growth. Hey, how's it going, guys? It's Paul with Spheric Reptiles, and I'm so glad that you tuned in today. Man, look, I've been wanting to cover this subject for a while, but I just have been really reluctant because I didn't know how to frame it, and I wanted to make sure I was putting out that staticky good music that people want that can actually help them, right? And so there's a big difference in feeding a 50-gram snake and an 80-gram snake, and I'll show you a 60-gram snake as well, because there are some differences as you move up. Of course, the bigger animal does better because of a lot of reasons that we already know, but even that animal you can have some issues with. What I'm going to be stressing throughout this video, the long-term health of the animal is established early on. So what I mean by that is that we want to raise healthy animals instead of just growing an animal up fast, right? That's a huge difference. The biggest theme that I can come up with is feed the animal that's in front of you, not the animal that you want, right? And I know that we all do it. You know, you get this little baby snake and you want it to eat immediately, and maybe it does, maybe it doesn't. And at the end of the day, you end up stressed out over a snake that maybe hasn't eaten in 1, 2, 3, or even 4 weeks in some cases.
I want the truth! You can't handle the truth!
And you're trying to figure out what's the best thing for me to do for this animal to get it to where it will grow. But the main thing we should be thinking about is trying to get the nutrients to this animal so it doesn't die, right? I mean, I think that makes sense. Again, this video, it applies to a lot of people. So if you go to a reptile expo and you buy a hatchling and it's anything below 120 grams, then this video applies to you. Or if you're a breeder and you just hatched out some animals and you know which eggs are going to produce the biggest babies, right? If you have a egg clutch and each one of the eggs is huge from 2 huge parents and the babies come out 80 grams, that's a hooray. That's what we all want. But inevitably, the average I would imagine is around 60 grams, maybe 65 grams. And when you get those rare cases, like we just hatched out a runt, that's about 40 grams. And I know you can see this animal on the screen. I haven't even weighed this animal yet. I know that this animal only partially absorbed its yolk sac. I'm going to treat that animal, this animal, like I treat all of my other animals. There is no difference when they're hatchlings. They're all the same. They're like a classroom full of your favorite pupils, right? I want every last one of them to be successful, to grow big, and have every opportunity not to be harmed, right? And so that's the whole thing that I'm really stressing in this video. Before I do anything else, I'll move the cart out the way, and I'll go ahead and pull out some animals just to show you. So the first one I'll pull out is an 80-gram animal, and this one is named Tsunami. So I'm gonna put all of these side by side. So this is the 80-gram animal, Tsunami. And you can see my setup here, how I have multiple places for the snake to hide. They can slither through, but the main thing is when I open up the tub, they can escape the light from the front. Now I'm going to grab another animal, which is Gumbo. And how much did Gumbo weigh at birth? So Gumbo weighed around 60 grams. So again, Gumbo has additional hides in here. Gumbo's all the way in the back. I really like these type of tubs because it makes the tub tighter. And I'll move this so that you can actually see Gumbo for now. And the very last animal that I'll pick out is Lemonhead. So Lemonhead was born at 52 grams. Lemonhead is kind of spicy. So all of these animals are some of our projects. I think that if I just pull this off, I can read it off to you so you guys can know that Tsunami is a Huffman that's heifer hypo and TSK exanic. And then if I go over here, let's see, these are all brand new animals. So this is Gumbo, and she is a pastel that's triple head for clown, hypo, and pie, 50% head for desert ghost. We'll have to shed test her for that. And this little spicy monster here that just doesn't want to eat, that was born at 52 grams, is Lemonhead. And she is a pastel phantom spot nose head clown. So we're actually really excited about all of these animals. Of course, I haven't had a chance to shed test them yet. All of these animals, just to fair balance, were hatched out within the last month. Her group, Lemonhead's group, has had more chance for food, so they've maybe eaten 4 times. She's only eaten twice. And then if we move this way, then we know that these animals are a lot less, right? Lemonhead's extra spicy, but she doesn't want to eat. So the one thing that I'm going to stress is that I'm not going to mess with them. See, this is the way that I do with my hatchlings, guys. I have very little interaction with them at this stage until they get to where they are established feeders. And I do that for a reason. For one, I don't want her getting stressed out trying to bite all the time. Like, she bites me all the time. When they're babies like that, it's just something that happens, right? I mean, she'll throw herself at me so hard that it's just ridiculous. But at the end of the day, let me discuss the differences in an 80-gram snake, a 60-gram snake, and a 50-gram snake. Okay, guys, so starting out with Tsunami, who is our Huffman that is double head for TSK and hypo. I'll just talk about this while the screen pops up. Well, the biggest difference is you can see the size, right? You can see that she is, or you can see, I'm saying it's a she, but this snake is a larger animal, right? Definitely a larger animal. You can see in my hands, I got normal size man hands, or I wore a size large or extra large glove. So regular size man hands. Biggest difference is that in the egg, Tsunami, if an animal comes out to where they're 80 grams, now they could be from big parents, but at the end of the day, they still have to absorb that sac. So the number one thing is they've absorbed all of their yolk sac. Their stomach sizes are larger and they have a greater nutritional value just starting off. They have more nutrients in their body because they're bigger and they're able to get a larger prey size so that they can actually receive more nutrients. You got to remember that when they're born, they're not really up to drinking water.
Oh no, 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 no.
They just came out of an aqueous environment. They don't know how to eat or drink. The closest thing they can do is eat because it's something that agitates them. It invokes a response that's native to snakes to where they just want to bite stuff, as you saw in Lemonhead a little while ago. And what you have is an animal that's easier from the start, which means that if they don't start eating immediately, that animal has more weeks that it can go without nourishment, without being dehydrated, right? But with every meal, so if this animal, what I would normally start off an animal like Tsunami on, is a small mouse. So not a mouse hopper, but a small mouse, because that's small enough to where they can still get the water and the nutrients from that animal. And plus they get the bone marrow from that animal. Even though it's not mature, it's a lot more than they will get from a mouse hopper. This is what you get when you start off with an animal that's at 80 grams. So now let me go ahead and show you the one that's starting off at 60 grams. All right, so this is Gumbo. And remember, Gumbo is a triple head clown pied hypo that we have to test for the 50% chance of being desert ghost. So it should be a very gene-packed animal. We haven't decided on what we're gonna do. And I know I keep calling it a she. I think I call all of my snakes she until I sex them. And I'm not sexing my animals until they're ready to go, right? Right before I put them on Morph Market or make them available, that's when I actually sex them, because I don't wanna be stressing them out at any part of their body. So that's what I do. But I'm gonna put her back. The major difference in an animal that's 60 grams is that they've had a very good egg experience, right? They've had a good egg experience. They've absorbed the majority of the yolk from the yolk sac. They've absorbed it. Their stomachs just aren't as big, right? Because they're a smaller animal. This is an animal that's 20 grams less. 20 grams is the size of a small mouse, right? So if we look at small mouse to maybe almost an adult mouse, 20 grams, that's a big difference when you spread it out over the whole body of the snake. This animal has a smaller stomach. So that means that it has to eat smaller prey items. And coming out of the egg, it's not as hydrated as an animal that is 80 grams, right? The bigger the animal, the more hydration, because the more fluid they can hold. It's just simple, right? But when we look at this animal, I'm gonna start her out on mouse hoppers and then gradually move her up to, I keep saying her, it, and gradually move it up to rat pups and mice, right? So my Crebo, can you show that over there? How she's stalking, he's stalking. So the Crebo over there is stalking because he sees snakes out. So he's not even hungry, but that's just what they do, you know what I mean? But anyway, I always talk about them. The biggest thing to do with this animal when they're starting at 60 grams is be patient. Increase the amount of hides in there and try to invoke a natural feeding response. It's not so dire for you to get right into it and assist feed this animal because they still have, at 60 grams, they still have quite a bit of nutrition from the yolk sac and are still relatively hydrated. So if you can get them on food early, especially when the mouse hopper, you'll see that this animal will more than likely catch up with the 80-gram animal. And I got some adult examples at the end of the video. But before I do anything else, let me put Gumbo's cage back like I had it. Again, guys, this is my setup, and you can see how crowded it is. The only place they can come and just free space is here. But baby ball pythons don't like a lot of free space. And the reason I have these up this way instead of that way is because if they get on here and I try to pull the drawer out, then it could actually drag the snake along the top, and I don't want that to happen. So I turn this upside down so they have their own little rooms within this compartment. Let me get back out Lemonhead, who is a little bit of a whippersnapper. And here is Lemonhead, and what I'll do is I'll just disarm Lemonhead real quick. So you just disarm him. And this is Lemonhead. Lemonhead was born at 52 grams, and at 52 grams, it's just really, really small. I've been having to assist feed her already. I said her again, but it already. And the biggest thing is I put Lemonhead back is since Lemonhead is so small, this is where the animal has absorbed not even a full absorption, right? So started off with the smaller yolk bag to begin with and probably only partially absorbed that. That's why Lemonhead came out small. But to top it off, the parents were small. She was born small. It was born small. Smaller stomach, less hydration, less nutrition. So with the smaller animal, it's really imperative that you get this animal on food. So with an animal that is 50 grams or less, I'm going to say after 2 weeks, start trying to lightly assist feed. That's the only way that I've gotten her to eat, is to slightly assist feed her. Hopefully this agitation that I'm doing under these bright lights will get her to eat on her own. I'm crossing my fingers, but she did not eat the first 2 times, whereas her siblings did. And I'm going to show you one of her siblings from that clutch. And I removed the stuff from this one earlier. Take that poop out of there. So you can see that this animal is already about to go through shed, so we'll be able to shed test this one. But this animal is already pushing close to 70 grams. It's already been eating on its own. So this is a clown, and we're thinking it's a phantom leopard clown, maybe yellow belly, but we'll have to test for all of that. But I put this back up, and I removed all that stuff earlier. And Lemonhead is still going off over here. Lemonhead, you just, oh, that is so crazy to me how you would think that that animal would eat, but that defensive nature is one of the reasons why Lemonhead doesn't eat, because Lemonhead gets stressed out. And so that's, anytime you change the environment on a ball python, especially ball pythons, more than likely the only thing that they do is go off of food, because remember, this is an animal that hides, which is the reason why these rack systems work out great for them, but it wouldn't work out great for our king snakes, our boa constrictor, or any other snake that we have, because those are diurnal snakes, where this is a snake that actually hides in the burrows of other animals all day and comes out very seldomly, but it's an ambush feeder. So by her doing that, that shows me that she's really stressed. So I'm going to really tone it down a little bit as soon as this video is over and make sure that she can get the peaceful environment that she needs, as long as these other animals aren't making all that racket. I'm going to use Mercury real quick to talk about the 80-gram animal and then their progression, as well as what her numbers were. So I'm going to put 2 different charts on the screen so that you can actually follow along with that. And as you're looking at the screen, if you have a typical 80-gram animal that feeds immediately at birth, or 80-gram, within 3 months, they should be 120 to 170 grams. 6 months, they should be 220 to 300 grams. And in 9 months, they should be 350 to 500 grams. That's if everything goes great with consistent growth, consistent feeding, all of this stuff. That is great. When you're having this right here, when you're having that type of explosion and growth, that's a normal linear curve for that animal. You're not overfeeding. You may be starting off with a rat pup, moving up to a wean rat, and during this time, you're just maintaining the wean rat until they get over, you know, probably 1,000 grams, right? So a wean rat's adequate for these animals. But if we look at the screen now at Mercury, as I hold her up for you guys to look at her, and she's a gravel head clown. I had her on a video, I think 2 videos previous to this one. She's gonna help to make us some super gravel clowns. But as you look at her numbers on screen, she was born November 24th at 82 grams. By August 25th, in 9 months, she was 515, and at the 1 year time frame, she was 674 grams, and that's an increase of 721.9%. That's great. You know, when you start off with the hatchling that's 80 grams and they start eating immediately, they're going to follow that growth curve linearly, you know, more than likely. And you're not overfeeding the animal. Remember, we want to do consistent feedings. We don't want to feed anything that's too large or anything like that. But that's where she is right now at 674 grams at 1 year. So she could be bigger, but I don't overfeed my animals. I only feed them what's adequate. Remember, I only want to feed them something if poop comes out, right? So if I don't see any poop, I don't feed. I make sure they have a clean system before I feed them again. And I think that's important for the overall health of the animal because I don't want them getting fatty liver disease, nor do I want them being obese and lazy. So that's what we have with Mercury and an 80-gram animal. Now I'll just go ahead and show you what a 60-gram animal looks like and their growth curve as well. Okay guys, so now we're talking about a 60-gram animal that was born and their growth curve and everything else that relates to this video. 60 grams is not the end of the world. At 60 grams, they just need to get a couple of meals in them and then they'll eventually catch up with that 80-gram animal. Unless that 80-gram animal just absorbs a lot of food, then they end up going on a larger prey. But typically, if you're feeding the same size prey, they're gonna have the same linear growth if they're eating with the same frequency and about the same gram weight, right? I think that makes sense. If we all eat the same, we all look the same if we exercise the same, right? Or lack of exercise, right? So this is Audi, and Audi is a red striped yellow belly that's double head for clown and pied. I know clown and pied was hot a while ago, but we want to use her to try to make some different combinations with TSK Exanic and as well as make some clown pied still. I still like clown pied. So I want to make those clown pieds and get those visuals, and then we'll see what happens with her. But you can see just how big she is. I would still call her a subadult. Now she's pretty big for a subadult, but let me explain to you some of the things as you're looking at the screen about a 60-gram animal. 60-gram animals are delayed, but they normally catch on. So at birth, they're born at 60. In 3 months, they're about 80 to 110 grams. In 6 months, they should be about 180 to 240 grams. By 9 months, they should be 275 to 375 grams. That's a little bit less than the 80-gram animal, but at the end of the day, you got to remember that this animal is starting off with a partially absorbed yolk sac, a little bit less nutrition, and a little bit smaller stomach, even though it's not significantly smaller until it gets under 50 grams. Now, if we look at her growth curve, specifically, Audi was born February 2025 at 64 grams. In 9 months, she was 474 grams. And at 1 year, she was 634 grams compared to Mercury's 674. So you can see that she actually caught up to Mercury. Now, she's still a little bit less, about like plus or minus 40 grams. But at the end of the day, she gained a positive 890.6 grams over her baseline weight when she was born. I think that's important to note. So we're charting all of this stuff. You're not just recording these weights for nothing. You're recording the weights so that you can actually track this animal's linear growth or lack thereof over time. So this determines whether this animal will be fit for breeding, if it's a male or female, or if this animal has hit a wall, or if something's happened with your husbandry, because it can happen. Or with the feeders, like if you use one feeder from one place and you switch it and then all of a sudden the animal takes a break, like maybe a 5 or 6 month break from eating, then that would definitely affect the growth curve of the animal. It won't be linear anymore. It won't be in a straight line. But you can see just how beautiful she is, and I know that I can call her a she and not an it because I know that she's a she. Now we're going to talk about the one snake I have in my collection that it took me 6 weeks to get on food. Now, I've talked about this snake in the past that was born. She was 42 grams. This is extreme. When I saw her at a reptile show, like I said before, Danny Cadena with Chain Reaction told me not to buy her. It's just way too small. He said, and he had very objective reasons for me not buying her, but because she had the genes that I wanted, I took a chance. Now, because of that, I got this animal heavily discounted, because you know your boy is going to always look for a way to spend less money. But once I get the animal, it's an animal in my care. It doesn't matter what the animal is or what the plan is. I just don't want things to perish prematurely, right? I want to give them the best in health and opportunities that I can. Now, Margot is a super mahogany cinnamon het pied, and I will pull her up for you. She's still relatively small, and she's over 2 years old, just to let you guys know some things about Margot. Now, I named her after my aunt. She was one of my favorite aunts, and if we look at her, I'm going to discuss some things about the animal that's born 50 grams or less, right? You might have to assist feed them at 50 grams. Their typical growth curve, if you can ever get them on to eating on their own, or if you're just assist feeding them, they'll still gain weight with the assist feeds. But in 3 months, they should be 60 to 80 grams. That's a whole lot less. That's about half of the amount of the 80-gram snake. But you got to remember, they're starting off at almost half the weight of that 80-gram snake. They're not even able to eat the same size prey, and so they can't get the nutrition, they can't get the hydration, they can't get a lot of things. But also, in 6 months, they should be about 150 to 200 grams. That's if you can get them to eating during that time frame. In 9 months, 250 to 300 grams. Now, again, just to reiterate what I said earlier, they're born with a lot smaller stomachs because they're just smaller, either from not absorbing the yolk sac all the way or having a smaller yolk sac in the beginning. They're provided with less nutrients once they get out. So because of their size, they're more prone to dehydration. So with a smaller animal, you're going to see more prolapses. You're going to see more sudden deaths. You're going to see more inability to feed because they're so small that everything you put in front of them is just big to them, and they're just really scared of it. Because remember, the world is new to them. So all the lights, everything is completely different than what they had in the egg in a dark incubator, right? But if we look at Margot's growth curve, she was born September 2024, and because she's 2 years old, she's almost 2 years old. She was 42 grams. June 25th, she weighed 256 grams. September 25th, she was 377 grams. But right now, as of August the 7th, she is 844 grams. So these are some crazy numbers. Remember, she started off at 42 grams. That's over 1,900% increase over her baseline birth weight. Now, I would say that that's linear growth, but that's because I'm personally attached to this animal, because I had to literally assist feed her mouse hoppers. And it got to the point to where she wouldn't even strike the animals, but if I just nudged them up to her mouth, then she would take them. And she's one of the few snakes that will still eat out of my hand without biting me. And I think because this is the part that is a little bit frustrating, especially if you have a bigger collection, which is why we choose not to have a larger collection, because I know I wouldn't be able to spend the same amount of time with my animals, is that in the beginning, I would offer her the assist feed and she wouldn't take it. Then I would offer it again and she would play with it a little bit, and then I'd look in the tub. And the second one, I would have to almost force feed her. I would have to force feed her. I had to do that for 3 weeks just so that she would live, right? And I was like, well, if I don't give it an effort, then if something happens to her, I'll feel guilty about that. Now, it got to the point to where she was eating out of my hands so much to where now she's one of the best feeders we have, even though you can see that because she was born so small that she's only the size of maybe an adult male, right? She is a female though, so that's the weird part. So we're gonna probably have to give her another year to develop before we even think about pairing her up, because remember her body condition, even though she's a very good bodied snake, you can see her body condition is really good, but at the end of the day, she wouldn't be fit for pairing up at all. So that's why I keep her in a smaller enclosure. She is one of the few that whenever I see her, I just grab her, because I think when you go through something like that with an animal, that's what you do. Hopefully this information that I've shared with you on an 80-gram snake, a 60-gram snake and a 50 or smaller gram snake has been helpful to you. Guys, look, we all want our snakes to be nice and big, right? Like we want our kids to grow up nice and big and be strong and smart and all this other thing. But let's do this. Let's take care of the snake that's in front of you. So if you have an 80-gram snake, feed that snake differently. So start that snake out on a small mouse and progress up to an adult mouse, a rat pup, and then a weaned rat. If you have a 60-gram animal, start that animal because we can't feed the animal that we want. We got to feed the one that's right in front of us. So start that smaller 60-gram animal out on a mouse hopper and progress up to a small mouse, an adult mouse, and then a rat pup, and then a weaned rat. Now, if you have a smaller animal yet, this is the one thing that I didn't discuss. Start out with pinkies. You just need nutrients in there. So if you have to feed pinkies twice a week, that's going to be a lot better than the animal not eating at all. Plus, when it comes to assist feeding, you don't want to feed or assist feed something that's too big. So a pinky, when you get it wet, it's kind of slippery, and that can go down the snake's throat a lot better, and it's less traumatic for the snake. So with her, I started her out on pinkies. Then I progressed to mouse hoppers. That took a while. Then I progressed to small mice. That took a while. Then adult mice. And then by the time she got to rat pups, it was animals that were born 9 months before her that were already eating rat pups in 1 month. So, you know, that just goes to show the level of detail that we pay in attention to all of our animals. But I'm hoping that this is something that helps you guys. Hopefully you've enjoyed the screenshots that are there and that you can maybe save them because they are PDF files or PNG files that you could save. I tried to do them as high quality as I could, and that way you can have those and save those for future references. But man, look, I'm not doing this for no other reason than to help you, because at the end of the day, I think I know how to take care of snakes, and the reason I put out one video a week is not for views, not for anything else. It's to help you, because when you're at home with your snakes, the only thing that I hope, and even, you don't even know me from Adam, right? I don't know you either. I know some of y'all, but at the end of the day, this is the thing that I want for you. I want for when you get your snake, that you keep your snake. You keep your snake through the duration of your life or your snake's life, and that both of you can be happy together, or as many snakes as you want, but that it'll be a good relationship to where it's nothing that drives you away from that snake. And I don't want you frustrated over little things, over hatchling size and weight and their inability or ability to eat. So, man, I hope that this video helps. If it did, just hit that like button, maybe subscribe, maybe leave a comment. If it didn't, let me know that as well, because I'm trying to make this more pertinent to someone that just has a snake and wants to know answers to some problems that they're having. But anyway, guys, it's the weekend, so you know your boy's about to barbecue because it's the summertime and it's the weekend. Those two things equal barbecue. Enjoy that time that you spend with your reptiles like Margot. This is my Aunt Margot reincarnate. I don't even believe in reincarnation, but it sounds good, right? And she was black too, so, you know. Anyway, but enjoy that time that you spend with your reptiles, and then cherish that family like my Aunt Margot while you have them, because when people are out of your life, it's hard to replace them. Thank you.